Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we study, reflect, and put Spiritist teachings into practice. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to subscribe, to follow our pages so we can grow together, and to send this podcast to someone else. My dear friends, today's theme is simple at first glance, but deeply transformative when truly lived. Patience. And to start us off, we can actually go to the Bible in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verse 19, where Jesus said, "By your patient endurance, you will gain your souls." And there's different translations for that. Some will see by your endurance, or patient, or standing firm, you will gain your soul or your lives. But the idea here is the same. The Master is telling us about the importance of patience so we can gain our souls, so we can gain our lives. And who better to talk about patience than our dear, dear Master Jesus, who didn't only preach about patience, but also showed us how to be patient. The Spirit author Emmanuel, who wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier, tells us that Christ's patience is an open book for all hearts inclined to good. And I think this is such a beautiful reflection, because the patience that our dear Master showed us is indeed an open book for everyone who's willing to read it, and most importantly, to also apply it. Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, on chapter 9 of the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, which is a book that I often mention here because it is one of the foundational books of Spiritism. He talks about that exhortation by our Master, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Allan Kardec is going to explain that meekness and patience are essential virtues for moral progress. And we learn through Spiritism that true strength does not lie in violence or imposition, but in self-mastery. Patience in this context, my dear friends, is an expression of meekness. It's also a form of inner balance, an achievement of the spirit over its own imperfections. But what is patience according to Spiritism? Well, patience, let's start with what patience is not. Is not weakness. Patience is not passivity or blind resignation. Absolutely not. Patience is knowing how to wait without revolt, enduring difficulties with balance, dealing with people and situations without losing serenity, and trusting in the timing of divine laws, trusting in the time of God. Spiritism tells us that the evolving spirit, which is the immortal being, gradually learns to master impulsive reactions. Impatience is a sign of imperfection. Patience is a sign of progress. We can also think of impatience as a reflection of pride. Yes, pride, something we just talked about in our last episode number 42 of this podcast. When we analyze impatience, we often see that it comes from pride. We become impatient when we want everything to happen on our timeline, when we do not accept setbacks, when we get irritated, when things don't go our way, or when we expect more from others than we actually give them. Impatience reveals difficulty in accepting limits. Patience, on the other hand, reflects humility before life. In the Spirit's book, question 862, or actually the answer to that, The spirits will tell us that a lot of individuals want to experience a life full of disappointment in order to exercise their patience and resignation. They're answering that in order to combat fatalism, or this idea that some people will suffer forever and ever and ever and won't be able to repent. A lot of the times, a life full of pain, full of suffering, full of difficulty is actually a choice that the spirit made before reincarnating, so the spirit can exercise and learn to be patient. We can also see patience as this moral strength or a sign of moral strength, because patience is also a form of charity, as we learn also in Spiritism. Some of you may say, wait, charity? How is that so? Well, because being patient with someone means respecting their timing, understanding their struggles, not reacting harshly, and offering compassion instead of judgment. Patience softens relationships. It prevents unnecessary conflict. It can even preserve harmony. That is also a form of charity. In a comment of the answer of question 982, Allan Kardec is going to say that Spiritism teaches us to bear our trials with patience and resignation. Here are the two again. And turns us away from doing things that might delay our future happiness. Through its teachings, Spiritism contributes to our future joys, but it has never stated that we may not attain to that happiness without it. Lastly, from the Spirit's book as well, I think question 740 tells us a lot about the importance of patience. Kardec's going to ask, couldn't calamities also be moral trials for humankind by exposing humans to the most afflictive needs? And the spirits are going to say, calamities are trials that furnish humans with an opportunity to exert their intelligence and to demonstrate their patience and resignation before the will of God. At the same time, calamities enable them to develop the sentiments of self-denial, self-detachment, and love for their neighbor, if they are not dominated by selfishness. Here we are again, pride, selfishness, all these things related to impatience that we just recently discussed as well. We also have great examples of patience where? In nature, outside of us. We cannot attempt to sow certain seeds and expect them to grow when it's not their season. We cannot also expect to plant a seed today and to reap the fruits tomorrow. We have learned this. We have learned to wait. We have learned to respect the time of the seed, the time of nature, the time of the plants. But in today's world, we expect everything to happen very fast. So we see a lack of patience in everybody, because everything must be immediate. We must have quick responses, fast results, instant solutions, and this creates anxiety and frustration. We want life to follow our pace, but we forget that some processes, like I mentioned with the seed, cannot be rushed. Spiritism invites us to understand that everything has its time and every lesson has its rhythm. But now let's bring this reflection into the application in some real-life situations, because this virtue is built in everyday moments. First, I brought here patience within family relationships. Family life is one of the greatest fields of testing. We deal with differences of opinion, habits that bother us, repeated conflicts. Being patient at home means listening before reacting, avoiding impulsive responses, understanding others' limitations, and choosing dialogue over argument. Often, peace at home depends on a pause before speaking. We can also think of patience in traffic and routine, because simple situations can reveal our inner state as well. So, for example, in traffic jams, in long lines or delays, impatience can arise very quickly there. But these, my dear friends, are opportunities for practice. So ask yourself, is it worth losing my peace over this? Breathe, pause, accept. This is also spiritual practice. Number 3, I brought patience with your own process. We are often impatient with ourselves. We want to change quickly. We want to become better immediately. But spiritual progress is gradual. Spiritism reminds us that the spirit, which is the immortal being, evolves step by step. Therefore, being patient with yourself means accepting your current limitations, continuing to make an effort to change, and not giving up. Never giving up. Remember what Jesus said in Luke chapter 21? By your patient endurance, you will gain your souls. Also, patience in times of trial, because difficulties are part of life. Losses, frustrations, illnesses, emotional challenges. Patience in these moments does not remove the pain, but it prevents despair. It helps us maintain trust, thinking, this too shall pass. There is a lesson here. There is a greater purpose. And number 5, patience with difficult people outside of our family as well. Some people truly test our patience. They may be aggressive, they may be critical, they may be insensitive. Patience here does not mean accepting abuse. It means not reacting with the same negativity, maintaining our inner balance, and acting with awareness. Responding calmly is a form of strength, is a form of patience as well. But my dear friends, no one becomes patient overnight. It is a continuous exercise. Every challenging situation is a training opportunity we have. So each time we avoid an impulsive reaction, we remain calm, we choose balance, we strengthen this virtue that is so important. And patience can bring deep benefits. For instance, inner peace, healthier relationships, more balanced decisions, and emotional clarity as well. The patient spirit suffers less because it does not add suffering through revolt. So here's a simple practical exercise. During your day, observe when you lose your calm, when you lose your patience, when you become impatient. And in those moments, take a deep breath. Pause. Avoid reacting immediately. Over time, this pause becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a virtue. Patience is not just waiting. It is knowing how to wait with balance. It is trusting in God's timing. It is understanding that everything has its right moment. May we, my dear friends, day by day, develop more serenity, respond with more awareness, and cultivate our inner peace. Because, as Spiritism teaches, true progress comes when we learn to master ourselves. We reached the end of another episode, my dear friends. This time, episode number 43, where we talked about the importance of patience and ways to practice it. Thank you so much for being here with me. And if this message resonated with you, consider subscribing to our channel, following our pages so we can grow together, and most importantly, share it with someone who may need more patience and serenity in their lives. We will meet again in the next episode next Monday. And until then, remain in peace, trust in divine timing, and keep walking one step at a time under the light of the gospel. With fraternal love, your Spiritist Companion.